Fire them up. That's what we do at the Andrew Gosser Show. We fire them up right here on 1039 WYAB, where we are streaming on Rumble, where we are streaming on X, where we are streaming on YouTube, where no one really cares about Facebook, and we are streaming at WYAB.com. WYAB.com, ladies and gentlemen. So if you can't pick up the 50,000 watt blowtorch of a signal that is 1039 WYAB, help us grow the station. Help us build the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a Democrat. We'd appreciate that. You can also follow me on X, where we're going to talk about all the stories that I use in the program today. Just at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. Ladies and gentlemen, the text line is open, 601-879-5060. However, the phone line is still down. We'll hopefully get that fixed here shortly. But 601-879-5060 is the text line. And it really doesn't matter, because the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat of its fruits. And I've got a different opening segment. There's lots of craziness going around all over the internet and stuff. But first of all, Pastor Nathan Villa was in town preaching this weekend, and I got to see him preach. It's always good to see Pastor Nate. And he dropped something, a test and a temptation. And it really kind of set the mood for everything that I was doing for my show prep. And I came across this video that had absolutely nothing to do with spirituality, had absolutely nothing to do with religion, had absolutely nothing to do with politics. But it had something to do with, I think, almost 90% of the people in this listening audience agree with. And that is a properly cooked steak. And he went, and it was just incredible. Here was a 60-year pitmaster in Texas. And these two crazy Europeans, and the Europeans absolutely love everything America. They're now finding out that everything that they see on the BBC, Sky News, is all a load of hot garbage. And they can't get enough of Americana. And they pulled over to this hole-in-the-wall pitmaster place in Lubbock, outside of Lubbock, Texas. And they asked, hey, can we get some brisket? And the pitmaster said, everybody always wants a brisket, but no one knows how to do a smoked barbecue steak. And so the two crazy Europeans were like, hey, let's go ahead and try to get one of these steaks. And over the next 8 hours, these Europeans basically vlogged their day with a pitmaster in Texas. Now, how cool is that, first of all, in America, that we've got pitmasters like that? We've got the best of the best. It doesn't matter what it is. We've got the best. We really do. We can turn brisket into multi-million-dollar businesses. And everybody knows that a brisket's hard to cook. Now, there are a lot of us sitting here listening saying, well, Andy, I know how to barbecue a steak. I know how to do it. But do you know how to smoke a steak? And this is what this pitmaster started doing. He got an offset fire, where you start a fire on one side of your pit, and then on the other side, you put your meat. And he put in a thermometer into that thing, and he got it to 115 degrees. He smoked it with some post oak. I have never smoked a steak before in my life, but it sounds good. And everybody sits there, and we go out to eat at these steak restaurants, and they put the perfect grill marks on there. And if you know anything about cooking steaks, grill marks are just the signs of a rank amateur. You don't want grill marks. You want a crust. And there are all different ways to do steaks. You can sous vide it. You can reverse sear it. You can sear it. But offset smoking. So these guys are sitting there talking to this pitmaster, and he talks about how he learned how to smoke steaks over 60 years working at this same place. It's his place. It's incredible to me. And he sits there, so he starts the offset smoker, and he's got the smoke going with the post oak, and you got a big you gotta get a thick cut of steak. You don't want one of these little 1 inchers or these little skirt steaks. It's not gonna work. You want at least 1.5 inches, if not 2 inches thick. And he said, "You wanna get it to 115 degrees. And once it gets 115 degrees, you take it off the post smoker or out of the smoker, and you start letting it rest, and you heat up a cast iron skillet. And instead of putting you don't put in olive oil because that gives it a bad taste. You don't put in butter because 'cause it'll also give it a bad taste and it burns. And I did forget a part of the story. When you do the steak, you just wanna use salt and pepper, and you wanna let it sit for at least an hour at room temperature. I did forget that part. I apologize. I'm kind of flying off the cuff here. But and there's a reason I'm getting to the steak and why I'm going through all this. But then you get your skillet, your cast iron skillet up to temp. You throw in a copious amount of beef tallow. You don't use butter. You don't use oil of any kind. You use beef tallow, and don't pollute it with rosemary or garlic. You can try it afterwards, but he says, after doing this for 60 years of his life, just regular beef tallow is the way to go. And you put it 45 seconds on each side. Once that's done, you will get the perfect steak. And you let it sit, of course, again, you gotta let it sit for about 5 minutes to let the juices reconstitute itself. And I hope people getting hungry about there, and he was using ribeyes, I believe. But he sat there and he goes, "You know, very few people have learned how I cook a steak. Normally, they have to sit here and, over time, learn how to do it." And if you think about it, isn't that how we've passed down our traditions, our oral history, even our written history, how we learn to do things? In the trades, you have apprentices and then journeymen. But I said all that to say this. In the course of a 17-minute and 31-second YouTube video, I learned how to cook the very best steak of my life. If you've never tried a post oak smoked steak seared in beef tallow with only salt and pepper, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you this right now, you are missing something. You are missing something special. And it's one of the things that the Sweet Bee and I definitely do is we watch a lot of, uh, food YouTube, I would say. That's like one of our entertainment vices, and if you don't watch Sous Vide Everything, if you don't watch Google Foods, Food Wishes, a couple other ones, the crazy French guy, I can never remember his name. But I was thinking about it, and I was just like, I took decades of this man's wisdom, and I just congealed it down to 17.5 minutes. And now, I'm sure my steak is still not as good as his, but I can do a pretty good steak, you know? And isn't that kind of what's happening now when we start looking at what's happening with AI, where we're taking decades and decades of knowledge? Blue Sim saying, "You must have watched Guga a time or two." Yeah, we've been watching him since, like, 2017, 2018. But my point is this, is that we are no longer learning how to do things, we're just depositing information into videos and recalling it when we need it. And we're not learning the craft, we're not learning the trade, we're not learning the skill. And some people would say, "Well, you don't need to waste that much time learning that." Well, maybe that's correct, but maybe it's not. Maybe that's what made humanity in America so great. I think about the people who learned how to bake bread, you know, the master bakers, the master and I realize I'm talking about food, but you could say this about shipbuilding. You could say this about airplane building. You could say this about learning different trades like accounting and being a physician. And I'm not wondering if we're destroying our ability to learn by having all this on-demand type of stuff. We're certainly getting I saw some writing the other day, and I thought this was truthfully like a 2nd or 3rd grader, but it was a note to my daughter from one of her friends, and I was like, "Holy smokes, this kid can't print." I would dread to see her cursive, but the kid couldn't print, and I try to stay off the devices as much as I can when it makes sense. I do like to read a book, but, sometimes when it just gets too jittery, I just have to put it down and go watch some TV or go do something like that. But where do we spend our time now improving ourselves? Because I would argue, and the sweet bee would say that me being able to cook a steak like that, that's a good investment of my time, but I'm just not wondering if we're losing that top of the edge, that cutting edge. I'm just not sure if that's the right way to go. Or if it is the right way to go, do we somehow throttle it? Do we somehow put a limit on how much of that we do and we use? Look, I've got all sorts of political stuff I wanted to talk about, and we will. In the second hour, we're gonna have Mr. Chris Tapia in the studio with us, which is gonna be exciting. We're gonna talk about what's going on. This week is first Wednesday, and I do believe it we've got Grip and Grin over at Mama Hamill's, and I do believe, we have a conservative coalition meeting coming up this week. And we'll start talking about all of that when we take our first break right here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. 601 879 5060 is the text line. Chat is open. Well, look, there was some great stuff on the Sunday shows. And, one of the things that I will not be apologetic for in any way, shape, matter, form, nature, relationship is my undying quest, number one, to make sure the Save America Act gets put through. And when I can ever slap on the Epstein files onto that, I'll do that too. But those are my two hills to die on. And we're up to 15 senators right now. There's the same 15 that from last week: Mike Lee, Rick Scott, Tommy Tuberville, Alabama's real coach, Jim Eubanks, Ashley Moody, Marsha Blackburn, Roger Marshall, Ted Cruz, Bill Haggerty, Katie Britt, Todd Young, Eric Schmidt, Dave McCormick, Darlene Graham, and Jim Reich, all on board with that. And I'll continue to promote that. I would say that our U.S. Mississippi senators still haven't really tweeted about it. I did not check their X accounts today, but I did do some research. And here is Senator Rick Scott of Florida talking about what's going to happen in the U.S. Senate. And, it was the weekend, and I know we all had stuff to do, family outings, things come up where we're not necessarily thinking about political strategy in our country. But here we are. This is Senator Rick Scott, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we ought to be voting on it every week, and even if we can't get the whole thing passed, vote on parts of it. And I believe we ought to force people to talk. That's how the filibuster is supposed to work. And then when people are done talking, you vote. It only takes 50 votes. But that's not where we are. What we can do this week is we're going to have hopefully a reconciliation vote this week, which will get as much in the Save America Act in the reconciliation vote, which only takes Republican votes, and get that started this week. It won't be finished this week. Ron Johnson, the chair of the Budget Committee, and hopefully that's what we'll be doing all day Wednesday and all night Wednesday night to get everything we can in the Save America Act passed inside reconciliation, and then work with the White House to see what else they can do. From an administrative standpoint, I think we ought to stay up here to get things done. I'm a business guy. I work 7 days a week. We're working 2.5 days a week. We're barely up here. We need to stick around and get stuff done.
And I think that is one of the biggest indictments on Leader John Thune that you can put out there, is that the Senate is really only working 2.5 days a week. And he said some things that got me a little bit excited, and some of the stuff didn't get me that excited. Parts of the Save America Act, we need the whole thing. We need the whole thing. But again, I realize that politics is a long game. How long of a game is it, Andy? Well, they passed the 17th Amendment back in 1913, and we're now only really realizing just how bad it is. It wasn't like abolition of alcohol, where people learned really quick that it was a bad idea to do that. Andy, the Bible doesn't says that you shouldn't be a drunkard. Yeah, but it says that you can have a glass of wine with your dinner. And again, it comes down to the human experience and having your own limitations. And it's just one of those things where we can repeal amendments that we've passed, even if it's over 100 years old. Could you imagine Lisa Murkowski would not be acting the way she's acting right now if she knew she was on a short leash from the governor of Alaska? People would say that, hey, Andy, would our Mississippi senators be that way? We're a little bit different down here. And I get reminded that constantly. Andy, Mississippi's not like some of these other conservative states. We do things a little bit differently. And yes, I am keenly aware of that. And I'm grateful that Mississippi is the way it is. But the fact remains that our founding fathers put the Senate in there for the state's representatives for a reason in our representative republic. That's the other thing that the Democrats kept on saying on all their talking news shows, is that our democracy, and not one Republican could say we're a representative republic. It's almost like we've ceded that ground. But you know who didn't cede any ground? And I was really proud to see it. Who didn't cede any ground was RFK Jr., ladies and gentlemen. RFK Jr. was on CNN with that CIA plant Dana Bash, and she is a big pro-vaxxer. And I've got 2 cuts, and we're gonna play them both because I want you all to see just how corrupt the mainstream media is. I know you know it, but there's a lot of you who don't say that the mainstream media is biased, that they think that CNN is somehow straight down the middle. It is not. And some of the texts I get from some of the people on the middle of the road, people saying, "Andrew, I just didn't realize it was that bad." Well, listen to this. This is awesome. Let me make sure the volume's cranked up here. And go.
But
Yeah, of
you were
course
saying
wanna
you
move
were
on
yes,
because you
I
were
do.
part of the problem.
No, I wasn't part
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
problem.
there was absolute press malpractice. You weren't allowing
Mr. Secretary,
your job
your job.
is a fierce skepticism
Okay.
toward authority. And
Yes,
you weren't
I am.
doing that. You
And she admitted it. She was a fear authority. That was the whole job of the mainstream media back in 2019 and 2020 to instill fear, deceit, dissent within the ranks of the American people. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is actually absolutely bringing it to Dana Bash. Let's finish this one.
I
were
am.
beating up
My
on
job is
people who were
also
dissenting.
no. Okay, you want to sit here and attack me, or do you want to have
You're
conversations
sitting
about
here and
public health?
attacking me.
I'm not.
Yeah, yes, you are, Dana Bash, and everybody who's in the middle of the road sees it. You sit there and you go out there with your high and mighty. You sit there like a pious person, thinking that you're better than everybody else. And by the way, real Christians don't think that. But you're sitting here thinking you're better than everybody else. You're on your own program, got your own way of thinking. And if people don't think like you think, well, then you've got to attack them. And make no mistake, that's what the media does. Some would say that the right does it too. And I think sometimes that the right can go a little bit far, but hey, I digress. You look at what our mainstream media has turned into. It's not no longer news reporting, but it's opinion journalism. And that's exactly what Dana Bash is doing here. Let's finish this one up, and I got one more.
Attacking you. I'm asking questions about how to
And let
prevent
me
the next
ask the question,
pandemic.
and I'll tell you.
That's what I'm trying to do. But I also don't want to use this interview to allow you to say things that aren't entirely true.
And
But
and the thing is that you can use this platform every day that you're on the air to go ahead and say things that aren't entirely true. You have just enough disinformation. You have just enough fear to put in there, and you're so smug. It's absolutely insidious. That's the only word I can think of, and I know I used it last week, but that's the word that keeps on coming back up in my mind. What the mainstream media has done to the American people, and not just the American people, but people all around the world. One of the things that I've really taken a liking to since the World Cup is going to see how the news is reported in places like Denmark and Ireland and Europe. Speaking of Europe, did you see what happened in Spain? It's even worse. And the Spanish people are all getting up in arms. The prime minister's complaining about Italy and Poland having stronger borders than Spain, and how everybody needs to have weak borders like Spain. But I've got one more clip here from RFK, and I want to play it because I feel it's important. And you know what? We're going to take a little bit of an early break because this is going to go a little bit long, and I don't want to break it up in between 2 segments. Hang in there. We're going to continue to talk about this COVID-19 thing with RFK Jr. and Dana Bash right here on the Andrew Gosser Show, 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Sup, Dogfish? Yeah, that guy from Spain is a complete and total liar, dude. Not even debatable. Need a little bit more cowbell on the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. Text line is open at 601-879-5060. Incompetence, Brother Rick's calling people incompetent. Yep, the people in Spain are incompetent. The mainstream media is incompetent. Dogfish checking in during the break. Appreciate everybody tuning in. A little bit different communication than normal. Look, this is a minute and 54-second sound clip. And this is coming from CNN State of the Union, where Dana Bash, CIA operative, is debating RFK Jr. And this is going to be hard to listen to for some of y'all, especially those of us who are in the middle, who don't necessarily like confrontation, who necessarily don't want to get into the argument. We have our opinions and we want to listen to sides, but we want to do so in a way that doesn't necessarily cause anxiety or confrontation. There's just the type people. But what I would say to you, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but sometimes you got to expose yourself to what the other side is doing, so you don't become part of the fear mongering. You don't get sucked into their fear and their lies and their deceit. You inoculate yourself from it. I'm using that in verbiage on purpose, by the way. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
You are the HHS secretary, and you are talking about things that lead to vaccine hesitancy in this country.
Yes, he is the HHS secretary. Thank you very much, President Donald J. Trump, because if we would have had Kamala, would have never happened. If we would have had some of these, Nikki Haley, do you really think we would have had RFK Jr.? Nope, we got RFK Jr., and he is about to lay the pipe, ladies and gentlemen.
And it is something that causes problems for people.
I mean,
It causes problems for people like you, who are so used to having your opinion just shoved down everybody's throat and forced to accept it. And we're gagging on it. We're so sick and tired of the mainstream media telling us what to think, telling us what to do, telling us what we should be able to do and not able to do. We don't want that. We're Americans, for crying out loud. We when someone tells us what to do, we go in the other way just for general purpose, even if it isn't the right thing to do. And the vaccine hesitancy, again, you know what? The two people who called up and got the died suddenly link from Rumble, they haven't called me back yet or talked to me yet. But I'm telling you what, you go watch that and tell me if you don't have some vaccine hesitancy.
There is not anything.
let me ask you something. Do you see your job as ending vaccine hesitancy, or do you see your job as telling the truth to the American people?
I see my job as telling the truth, and the truth is that there is study after study after study. It's one of the
Okay, study after study after study. And this is where it gets really good, ladies and gentlemen, because she's coming from a point of authority, saying she's got the studies. Well, that's great. I know somebody who writes a lot of studies, and it's one thing to say that you know what the studies are, but it's another one to actually reference them. So let's see what happens here.
most studied things out there in science.
You're repeating
and it
it
is
like a parrot. You're repeating
So are
it
you.
like a parrot.
So
I've
are you.
actually read the science.
You-
Let's
you
and
don't
I
wanna- you
come
don't
back
wanna-
here and debate the
So
science.
I'm not debating this with you.
Of course you won't.
No,
No, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You've been giving your talking points, say the studies. There's a lot of studies out there that are completely conflicting with what was put out in 2019 and 2020. Lots of them. But she doesn't even know she can't even reference her own ones. She'll just say the studies. And RFK's caught her, and he's holding her feet to the fire. And this is what we need to do with all of our politicians, Republicans and Democrats. And I don't understand why these journalists are put on such pedestals, but they are. And we need to continue to confront them too. And I'm going to do my best Scott Pressler here. We need to confront them peacefully, ladies and gentlemen, peacefully.
because I'm not
all you
debating
know how to
false-
do is repeat things that people told you and say, trust the experts. That's what you did during COVID. Now we know that Anthony Fauci, who was the expert, was lying about everything, about masks, about social distancing, about natural immunity, about the transmission from the vaccine.
Unknown texter text in, what's up with RFK's voice? He's got a disease that affects his voice, and I don't know what it is, but you can go up and Google it, and you can find out about his voice. But that's just how he talks. It's not that he's stuttering. It's not that he's doesn't know how to complete his thought. It's just when you've got a voice box that doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, that's what happens.
About the source of COVID. He was lying, and you were punishing people for not trusting the experts. And now you're rolling out the experts again
Yes.
to talk about something that you have no personal knowledge of.
Okay, well, guess what? That is my job
To talk about stuff that you don't know what you're talking about. And this is this is like the Fifth Element, and that crazy reporter guy with the big honking hairdo. I mean, this is like The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Len Dawson. Go back and watch those movies, and you'll see just how stupid and crazy the media really was. And this just further proves my point about Operation Mockingbird. It really does.
to talk to people.
Your job is to
Am I
tell the
allowed to
truth
talk?
to the American
Yes,
public.
yes. and
No,
my
you're
job
not.
is
And
to
to
get
be-
as
and
much
to-
information as I
And to
can.
maintain
And what we were doing,
a posture
what we were
of
doing,
fierce skepticism
what we
toward
were
government
doing
authority.
in COVID.
Journalists were supposed to be skeptical about everything, but they're not. If you're liberal, then they're not skeptical at all. If you're a conservative Republican, then they're very skeptical. And if you're a Christian, well, now you might as well be the devil to them, because they're a bunch of witches.
COVID and still, with regard to these vaccines, is getting the best information, the best science that we can, and putting it out there. And sir, what you are doing is causing
getting the best
information
science
to be
from
out there
somebody
that is
who's lying to
not
you.
accurate.
Who was lying to
The
you?
national
Fauci was lying. If he wasn't lying, why did he take the fifth 111 times? You know, we've sent people to jail over that. Blue Sim saying it was Chris Tucker with the crazy haircut in The Fifth Element. You guys are the best. My movie knowledge is not that great outside of Star Wars and Marvel and maybe Transformers. Just was never a big movie guy, but this just goes to show the point that CNN is bought and paid for. This Dana Bash chick should be removed from the air. She's not trustworthy. And I can't wait till the mass firings happen at CNN, not because I want it to become more conservative. I can handle liberals who are arguing their point of view. But when they openly lie like they did, and there's a whole nother video that I have, and I'm not going to be able to get to it today, but it's Stephen A. Smith, ladies and gentlemen, calling out Kyrie Irving, who refused to get the jab. And they had a bunch of reporters and Anthony Fauci go up to his doorstep saying, "Hey, how you're a super spreader. You're causing problems for the community by not getting the jab." These videos exist out there, ladies and gentlemen. sometimes though, some of these videos have expletives in them and the stuff like that, that I just can't cut it all out. It doesn't make sense to. And I've kind of got a new standard that I'm following, whereas if I have to bleep out a swear word, I don't want to use it unless it really, really needs to happen. Now everybody's jumping in about Fifth Element. The Blue Diva was the best part of the Fifth Element. I just watched CNN to stop telling me I can't believe my own lying eyes. Yeah, I hear that, Chicken Little. I I I don't even watch CNN. I just go to get the clips. There's great people who have clips and put out clips about stuff, and I can get the important information. And you know, I'll sit there and watch too when Republicans get their butts handed to them. Andy, you're so up against Tucker Carlson. Well, was I really up against Tucker Carlson when he was handing it to Ted Cruz over the Genesis quote or scriptures? Hmm? No, I believe I was pretty much on that side there. We have to maintain our integrity and our consistency, ladies and gentlemen, when we start calling out these mainstream media people and these politicians, whether it be with the Save America Act, whether it be with the COVID-19 vaccination fraud, and the damage that was done to humanity, in my opinion, is truly incalculable. We truly retarded the growth of or not American civilization, but human civilization by years. And we've injected a mRNA vaccination that no one can truly say what it did or what it didn't do. We know it killed a lot of people. We certainly know it killed a lot of people, but we don't know if it's permanently changed our DNA strands moving forward. We do know that autism rates are through the roof. And that's why I continue to talk about these things. It's also why we have a biblical worldview on this show, and I will not run away from that. And it was really great to hear from so many people who were saying they appreciate the fact that I hold up to the biblical worldview without jamming it down everybody's throat. I just point out the links between the two, you know? And we have to do that. And the thing is, it's not enough for just one guy on the radio every day from 10 to noon on 103.9 WYAB every day doing it. We need the saints out there doing it. We need to equip the saints. Now, we've got some exciting news coming about equipping the saints, ladies and gentlemen. We do. But right now, it's time to take our last commercial break of the first hour. It's moving and grooving, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Chat is lit. I appreciate it. We love the First Amendment here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Might not like some of the activities you do, but your First Amendment is important. And anytime you have government overreach infringing upon an individual citizen's right to freedom of speech, when he's doing so peacefully, hey, you got to support it. And, I asked about what exactly is going on. And of course, Mary Jo Perry, who is the grand poobah over at Mississippi Parents for Vaccination Rights. She's the CEO, the executive director. I'm not sure. She's just the top dog there. Like I say, oftentimes, you shouldn't have to have a bunch of mamas get together to start an organization to have vaccination rights for parents in Mississippi. Our state representatives, state senators, governor, et cetera, should just make that automatic. But she took him to court. She won. She's a winner. And she said this: Bobby Kennedy has a voice box disorder called dysphonia, and it's neurological. He believes he got it from a flu shot. And there's a lot of military veterans who got a lot of shots back in the day who have a lot of problems now. And a lot of us think that we might be vaccine injured. I can't help but think that some of the stuff that I'm going through now is because of that stuff. But just because he has that problem does not discredit any of the information that he said whatsoever. Blue Sim says he doesn't watch CNN, but I do listen to the Scott Jennings show right here on 103.9 WYB from 2 to 4 daily. That is awesome. Scott Jennings is a good dude. Although he did say, we got to be fair to Scott Jennings. He did say that he had a good conversation with Mitch McConnell. And I believe it's the 9th is how long he's got to make it till so that they don't have to have a new primary in Kentucky. And they did have that picture come out. And I still hold true. I saved all of my AI searching and grokking and stuff like that when I started comparing those two pictures, and I overlaid it. I still have the Photoshop or the fireworks pictures where I overlaid it right on this computer live on 103.9 WYB. And all of a sudden, all the metadata that we could access just conveniently got zipped right off of the internet. Imagine that. I know it sounds a lot like X-Files and all that craziness, but that really was an X-File moment for me. And I will stick by that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last little bit of information here coming from Scott Pressler. And basically, the state of Pennsylvania was fighting him to get his voter rolls out there. And they were having all sorts of problems with it. Well, they ended up purging a bunch of voters off of the voter rolls in Pennsylvania. Democrats lost tens of thousands of voters. It's happening. It's actually happening. Our work to clean the voter rolls is actually working. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yes, we know that, ladies and gentlemen. And you have to have tenacity. You have to have persistence. And that's what Scott Pressler's doing. That's what Mary Jo Perry's doing. And our guest just walked into the studio right now as we getting ready to go to the top of the hour break, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chris Tapia is in the studio. Can't wait to have an awesome talk and conversation with him. Just hang in there, ladies and gentlemen. Keep the faith. Don't fall for all this Operation Mockingbird BS stuff that they try to talk to you about, vaccinations or crazy conspiracy theories. Just continue to trust your own eyes. Surround yourself with a good biblical background, and it's going to turn out all right. Don't go anywhere.
How's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Awesome. Thanks, Dogfish. We're just getting the studio all set up. And we are back for hour number 2 of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB, where we are streaming on Rumble, where we are streaming on X, where we are streaming on YouTube. No one really cares about Facebook, and we're streaming at the mothership that is 1039WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up the 50,000 watt blowtorch of a signal, like, share, and subscribe to our stream. Help us grow the channel. Help us grow the station. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a Democrat. Look, if you want to be part of the program today, you can either hop in the chat where it's moving and grooving, or you can go ahead and give me a text at 601-879-5060. For whatever reason, the phone line's still not working. And in the off, or the standard, you can't forget about the standard here. The mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You all are the saints. I planted it, Apollos watered it, but it's God that gave the increase. And I'm really excited to have my good friend Chris Tapia in the studio with me. It's been a hot minute, brother.
It has, man. It's been a few months, at least, maybe even longer than that. And how are you, man?
Dude, I'm hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit. I tell everybody that every day.
Yesterday. So I was like, well, you're still in there, you know?
Absolutely.
And people hear you and people see you, and thank you for everything you've been doing, man.
Dude,
you're a voice and a mentor to me, and I appreciate you.
But brother, I try every day, and you know, the great thing is that our listening audience is growing. It's big, and people appreciate genuine honesty. And even if you don't get it right every time, or it doesn't quite roll off the tip of your tongue like you want it to, people understand, and it's awesome. We've got great people here, and we're doing great stuff, and we're equipping the saints, man. We're getting people hooked up with conservative values, biblical worldviews that make sense to people who maybe even don't practice the faith. Good is good, and when they know it when they see it, and all of a sudden when they put 1 and 1 together, and it really does equal 2. It doesn't equal potato, and people realize, wow, this is where that came from. Well, then you know you're on the right track. You're on the right track, man. So
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's how it works. It's how it works. So tell us what's been going on, man.
Well, look, you said it real quick. God is good,
Mhm.
and I'm thankful for being here, man, and allowing this this time for us to speak and talk about what's been going on. This is not about me at all. This is 100% about, you know, first and foremost, I think God and our country and our state and our communities and our families and our energy that we see across the country and again our communities just trying to be directed somewhere. So working with the Conservative Coalition, we're really trying to rebrand in a way. Nothing's changed in the sense of the foundation and the principles of being dedicated to grassroots organization and educating and empowering people to lead them into action on behalf of, you know, their communities. We work together with Mississippians from all across the state because we see that we can make a bigger impact whenever we work together as opposed to just, you know, 1 or 2 guys. But not only that, also whenever we are organized, we get more results. So
that's a fact.
You know, for far too long, Mississippi voters have been really told that loyalty to a party, I think, is the highest form of political virtue. And we have to get away from that idea. We're not trying to exist to make a specific party look good or to treat any kind of partisan brand like kind of like to an end you know, solution of itself. But we believe in a Christian foundational value of truth and life and liberty and family and personal responsibility. And, you know, limited government under God is where the politics come in. And we're trying to align and measure every candidate and every bill, every piece of legislation, every policy that comes through and is trying to get involved in this world to those standards.
Dude, that sounds awesome. I'll tell you what, you're taking on a really big thing right there, because let me tell you, I've been trying for a long time to get more people who, whether they be pastors, preachers, evangelists, prophets, you know, just get them involved in
Let me
local
tell you,
politics.
Andrew, you did it. You did it because we're not the same age. I'm essentially, I guess, that would be the next generation, but now I have to show the next generation. You showed my generation, and now I have to show the next generation, and we have to keep this conversation going.
Well, brother, that's a heck of a compliment. Thank you for that.
I mean it, man. It's you know, our sermon yesterday at Journey Church in Pearl Brandon, Mississippi.
Yep.
Was about remembering your stones and where you came from and the work you've done. So, you know, I'd say that about today's show, and just a little special effect. We're going to use this time and this platform to thank God for what he's done and how far the work that you've done and the work that, you know, I heard you talking about Mary Jo earlier has done. And that, you know, since 2010-ish, when the Conservative Coalition came around, because people wanted to not say I'm getting involved in politics to be a part of a party, but because I have values of a family and how government should be. And that's the things I want to be involved in. That's what the Conservative Coalition was about. That's what we're trying to bring back. And it's people like you and, you know, Senator Chris McDaniel, who I admire, and people that have been along the way over 10 years now. So now it's finally, you know, we're being given this opportunity to say, hey, what's next for the next generation, and let's get this thing going again. And so when people want to get involved in politics, they don't want to, you know, a lot of folks say, you know, I want to get involved, but I don't want to, you know, I don't want to get involved in the Republican Party. Nothing against them. Or I don't want to get involved with the Democratic Party. Nothing against them, but there's just maybe feel like it's not, but I'm a Republican, but I'm conservative, or I'm a Democrat, and this is what I believe in. But, well, we're the Conservative Coalition of Mississippi. We have a candidate pledge that you can look over. It is very conservative, Christian foundationally built. And if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, you know, if you want to sign our pledge, we'll support you. Like, that's where we're going with this. Like, we're not concerned with the R or the D by your name. We're concerned about what matters. And if you can stick to what matters, we will support you. We will help you run for office. We will help you support legislation and how all that process works. And you know, if not, then we'll work twice as hard to get you out. But we want to make sure that we're holding people accountable, because that's what that business is about. Let's face it, it's turned into a business, unfortunately, but it is politics and accountability. Just like any CEO would want accountability to the people in their company, we have to require the same thing, because that's just what it is. It's not, if there's no accountability, you have no structure, you have no order, and then you have chaos, and we all know what happens in chaos, and we're kind of living through it. So the work you've done and the work we're trying to do now, thank you, because we have to continue to, we got to fight the evil, man. We live in an evil world, and we'll always do that. But while we're here, while we have breath in our lungs, we have to fight that fight.
You know, we got to sit up before you can crawl, right? And then you got to crawl before you can stand up. And then you got to stand up before you can walk. And you got to walk before you can jog. And you've got to jog before you can run. And you've got to run before you can sprint. And then you've got to be able to sprint before you can hurdle.
And you're going to fall.
Yeah. And you're going to have some training accidents along the way, right? And that's been, I think, the biggest thing that I've tried to pass on to people as they want to get involved with politics is start at the smaller level if you feel like you're not sure where to go to. And I think that's where something like the Conservative Coalition can help out. I'll also put in an argument for, there are Republican organizations out there that'll do that, but it just seems to be harder to break into that. And I don't say that to disparage the Republican Party. I won't do that. I'm an executive member of the Hinds County Republican Party, but I love Conservative Coalition, man. And I love these independent organizations out there that are bringing people into politics, because I genuinely believe that the conservative message is the winning message, especially when we see current events, not just in the United States, but around the world as well.
Well, there's things going on that, again, you know, I got a lot of friends over at the Mississippi GOP, and there's just things that the conservative movement and the grassroots movement of Mississippi voters, I've heard, I've seen in general across the state, things like homeschooling and things like, vaccine rights. And there's just so many more issues now that are very no-brainer things. And we're not trying to make more complex issues, but those are issues that need to have representation at the table of, what's going on. When you look at, I'm not beating a dead horse here, but school choice and House Bill 2, is that perfect for homeschool families? Absolutely not. But nobody's talking to homeschool families. We have some folks now that are doing nothing but tracking homeschool legislation and just specifically areas like that. So we will focus on the areas that matter, that are built into that good book that we should be living by. And it's laid out pretty simply. And we can touch a little bit about that later, but it's accountability, and it's about making sure we're sticking to principles over party, not just sticking to being a party because it's cool.
Where I get really excited about discussions like we're having with this, and there are other people around the state that I know that are having this conversation, maybe not on the platform that WYAB gives us, but when you think about having a bunch of pastors, and I'm not going to even get denominational on it. I'm just going to say a bunch of God-fearing pastors who are now sitting on the school boards, and all of a sudden you can get all the craziness that's out of our school libraries because it's still there. It's actually still there. People don't realize it. You imagine if you had a bunch of God-fearing people as just like your aldermen or your mayors.
I think all school boards in Mississippi need to be elected. There's still some that are not.
Yep.
That's maybe one of the things that we look at. That's going to take your local legislator in your area to propose that to be done. From what I understand, the process is. But even with Merge, which is the organization that we started under the Conservative Coalition, that will kind of be our podcast and fun social media arm that is really reaching out to the next generation. I spoke to 4 pastors since Friday about a lot of guys won't come on. A lot of guys have a very specific thing that they have to, a message that, I get it, there's a message that they have to stick to, but they don't realize that they can be persecuted too. And I mean, I told one, I said, look, in the world that you're in, you could be persecuted for what you're doing. So I get it. You kind of got to watch what you say. You don't really want to watch what you say. You're going to speak the truth. But, in this world, we're trying to bring your word. We're trying to bring our word, God's word, into the world of government and politics. And we cannot do that without solid people and pastors in your world who are advocating and stepping out and telling your congregations you do need to go be involved. Because if not, we're not going to do it. And that's kind of what's going on now. We've muffled it enough to where you can have that. You can have your churches and your congregations but we're just not going to talk about politics.
That's a great place to hold it, Brother Chris, because when we get back, that was one of the big things that Pastor Franco was really trying to break down that wall. We'll talk about it when we get back. That's Brother Chris Tapia. I'm Andrew Gosser. This is 103.9 WYB, and we will be right back. And we are back here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We are here with Brother Chris Tapia. Text line is open 601-879-5060. Do want to get to a couple of these messages coming in. Why is it that churches don't put their denominations on the homepage of their website? Always having to dig to find out the info. Brother, I don't know. Every church is different. Some churches put it out there. We're a Lutheran church, or we're a charismatic church, or we're a non-denominational church. And it's just how it is. There's no standard. We're all supposed to be the Church of Christ under God.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not a spokesperson for our church, but I will say that all are welcome. And that's what the point is we, don't want anyone to see a sign or feel like they have to wear a certain thing.
Yep.
Or be a certain type to come to know Jesus. And, all are welcome. So, the broken, the lost, the good, the bad, the ugly,
we've had it happen at our church where someone comes in with ripped up jeans, torn up t-shirt, and women come in and, hey, let's get them an extra shirt or whatever, and that's exactly who you're supposed to. I mean, Jesus sat with tax collectors and prostitutes, for crying out loud. So I think it's important that we kind of dismiss the image that's being portrayed about Christians on us by the mainstream media. And then we got another comment here. Great discussion. I love to hear you both speak truth. Powerful, truly spirit power. God bless you both. Thank you for that, man. And so with that in mind, I wanted to kind of discuss it, because there's always groups out there that form and they have great ideas, but they don't really come to fruition. And I'm like, without getting into too many of your battle tactics, I've been a real big proponent of local. What are some of the things that you've got planned for a conservative coalition moving forward, and what's coming up on the docket? What do you got on the calendar?
So, organization and the I'll back up just a second, man. The base is built. This is this is nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing that I woke up and thought of yesterday. This is something that you helped create and build over the past 10 years, and so many people have been a part of, and it has just been a blessing.
Just get a little bit closer to the mic, brother.
It has been a blessing to, again, like I said, just be in the position where we can re-engage that base and give people a place of information. So like our podcast and our social media and the news that we're looking for an intern, by the way, I'll just throw that out there.
There you go.
If that is interested in politics and wants to get involved, so we can, people can look and say this, I can get some trusted news here. I can get all the information and I can make a good decision for myself. There's things that I agree with. There's things that I don't agree with, but there's some things that you just can't deny. And what we're just trying to do is connect the dots from what makes sense in our life and what makes sense. I was talking to my wife last night. This country was built on a foundation of Christian principles.
That's right.
And it has worked. And looking around, and this just ties back to our sermon yesterday, we can look around at the things in our life that God has been faithful in. And our country, our state, our homes, our, the little things that we look over every day are reminders that there's still hope, and you're given another chance, and that's why you need to be involved.
Yeah.
You're not here to just give up. I said it says train up a child as they should go. It doesn't say stop in 2030. It doesn't say stop in 20 years. It doesn't say, it's you should not get involved in politics, so stop. No, it says continue to go. And what does that mean? It means teach them the things, the laws, the ways that our communities and our government are supposed to operate.
Yep.
And it's just it's turned into a machine. It's turned into too much.
I think one of the biggest lies perpetuated on the American public going all the way back was the separation of church and state
100%.
decision. They took one line out of a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Baptist Church and took it out of context and formed it into something that even when it was first decided, it wasn't a big deal. Everybody's like, oh, we're just going to continue on. But the devil plays the long game. Politics plays the long game. And they knew that they could start slowly eating away at it. And now we've got pastors, they're sitting there and they're preaching the word inside their church, inside their box. The church was never meant to be a box. The church actually was, if you go back to the book of Acts, it was home churches. And then you look at where church is spreading the greatest around the world, home churches in China, home churches in Iran, home churches in Saudi Arabia, where the persecution is real. Here, we get persecuted if our Happy Meal isn't delivered to us on time and in the way we ordered it. Then you got people acting all sorts of silly. The other thing that really kind of bothers me is that, we in Mississippi, we have a constitutional amendment that says we should use the Bible in our classrooms to teach. I can point it to you. I've got it bookmarked. But yet society says, no, don't do that. But as soon as someone goes to jail, all of a sudden when the evangelists go into the jail and start teaching the word, everybody's got their Bible, everybody's given access to that. And all of a sudden, are we saying that we have to let the world destroy a human before we build them up? I mean, there's so many ways to go out there and reach out there. And it's my biggest, regret in my life, Chris, is that I didn't realize this till about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's just all of a sudden, as soon as I figured it out, it's like, oh, can't go door to door anymore. Oh, I feel kind of guilty about this. In fact, I go door to door for politicians, but I wouldn't go door to door for Christ. And that slays me. It slays me.
I think we have to start there. And man, that's powerful, because everything that we intend on doing is faith driven in Jesus based, because we know that works. That is from our families to our, what the Constitution was based off of. So, we're going to be recruiting and vetting candidates who make sure that sign a pledge that are committed to Christian foundational principles, and really focus on their record and their consistency while they're in office. We're even looking at some recall stuff if before their term is over, if we're not aligning the way we should and not
Does
keeping
Mississippi have a recall?
Mississippi does not.
Ooh,
My
wow, that
understanding
would
does
be
not. So that may be one of the things that we look at as well. And it's like, well, why are you afraid to be fired if you're not doing anything wrong and you just vote the way that you should?
It's one of those things where they'll say, well, the election is the recall. That's
I think we get voted in and we get this popularity power grab mentality, and then it's like, I earned this, and by all means, God appoints, God anoints, and God anoints, God appoints, excuse me, and you're there for a reason. You deserve that, I believe, very well so. But sir, I don't, before the story continues, and now God's asking what you're going to do with that power, and it's very easy to get to your head. We've all been there. We've all had our ego get to us, but for year after year, Mississippi voters continue to not engage, and now we have to really focus on the local and the state level because of what we see going on the national level, and we'll focus on that too. But we're going to tie it all in, because I think people are looking at the bigger picture of what's going on and wondering, how is that affecting my Mississippi politics, and what is going on in Mississippi, and who is looking after Mississippi? There's only these two things in Mississippi that I can be a part of. Like, no, there's more in Mississippi that you can do to get involved in, to use your voice, to have backing, financial backing, to save our communities, man. I mean, that's where we have to start.
What I would say is just someone who comes from out of state, and now I'm here, and this is my home state. And my biggest regret is I didn't move here in 1996 when I had the chance. The biggest thing is we get so tied up in what's happening in DC, with the Save America Act. And, you know, that's something that I talk about, but I look at it from the point is what's Mississippi doing? You know, what is my state rep?
What is our delegation doing?
Yeah. What are our senators doing? What are the things that I actually have control over that I can have an input to? Now, don't get me wrong. If you are a gazillionaire and you want to start stroking 5 and 6 figure checks to candidates all around the United States who want to support the Save America Act, more power to you, but you are a rare creature. Not everybody can be like Uncle Elon, you know? But I think if we really start focusing, drilling down on the things that we actually can control and be like the good book says, you know, be that person that when someone asks you, what is it in you that makes you full of joy and hope? You have a good answer and a strong defense for the hope that is inside you. I know I'm kind of butchering 1 Peter 13, or 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, but that's what it's at. When we get back, I want to tell you a story real quick about when I got elected the second time and how it fits to this conversation. You are listening to Chris Tapia. I am Andrew Gosser. This is the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Happy thoughts here at the Andrew Gosser Show. I'm with Chris Tapia. I'm Andrew Gosser, 1039 WYAB. And I wanted to tell you a story, Chris, because this kind of goes to show you how we're all broken and fallen. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it. I was a county supervisor. I took out an incumbent Democrat, and in a very, what I would say, purple district. And then we had a highway commissioner, and dude, I was not qualified with any. I never even worked on the road construction job a day. And we had a highway commissioner who was making $117,000 a year, hired his wife for $97,000 a year, hired son-in-law number 1 for $93,000 a year, son-in-law number 2 for $91,000 a year. And oh, by the way, his wife, who he was paying $97,000 a year, she was on the board of supervisors with me, and she just happened to be the chairman of transportation.
Nice.
So every federal dollar for transportation, every state dollar for transportation, every county dollar for transportation that came into McHenry County, Illinois, went through the family. And I'm like, I got to run for this. And I got on my knees and I prayed. And dude, we went up to like people who had incredible track records of road building. Everybody said it, this guy is corrupt as hell. But no one would go up against him. And I remember saying, God, if you want me to do this, I will do it. And like you and I are talking, you said, do it. And I can remember signing the statement of candidacy in front of everybody, and everybody's clearing me. And I'm like, I'm so screwed. But the Lord was faithful. But here's where the story gets crazy. So I go in there the first day, I fired all the family, the union's all upset and everything. And God goes, I trust you. Now I need you to do this. And I'm like, it's okay, God, I got this. And I basically stiff-armed the Lord. And you know what? The Lord was faithful, but he took me on a journey that I was not expecting to go down to. And I think that's what happens with politicians. They get on their knees and they get in there, and then all of a sudden they taste a sip of that power. And dude, it is intoxicating is not the right word for it.
It's evil, man. We live in an evil world, and
it was so bad. I mean, I can't describe it. It's raw power, emotion. And so I think that when we have organizations like you, I say all that to say this: good people get into office and then they go astray. And it doesn't mean that they just don't need a good swift kick in the pants and they're right back in line again. That happens a lot. And I know that that's what happened to me. And we ended up doing great stuff. But I say all that to say, if we had a conservative coalition up there that was help people get trained up and going through the lessons learned like I had to go through, I think we'd be in a lot better place right here in Mississippi.
We'll definitely be paying attention. And you're right, man. You're just year after year, they, campaign on a platform and promises and just really betray their base by blocking solid legislation a lot of the time that would, either sometimes we've done a good job on some things, but defending, parents' rights, free speech, Second Amendment stuff. We're seeing an influx in the size of it, which is, it's too much for the average citizen to look at. And so, we're be very clear about the things that are important to us. And these are the things that we're going to track and follow, and the things that we will get involved with if we have to. Now, it's not just the legislator. As a people, we fully haven't carried out our civic duty in the way that we should have. And simply, some don't know what to do. Some don't know where to go. And that's kind of what we're here for, is to help.
We do not teach civics in high school like we should.
Why do you think that is?
Because they want us all stupid.
Well, they don't want, I was, probably not. I was in the middle of my class, I guess you could say. I didn't apply all my effort, but this stuff was always pretty interesting to me. And I questioned things and got in some trouble. And now I'm like, man, I totally understand, I really I put my head against the system and was like, why are we,
Yep. If it makes you feel any better, brother, I graduated second in my class. Out of 212 people, I graduated 211.
I think that makes us about even because there's like 400 in our class. So that's
I graduated
there.
by two
We're right there.
1,000ths of a point. I was at the very bottom of my
you're
class.
much smarter than I am. So
I was so immature and foolish when I was a young kid, but that's all right. The military straightened me out.
there you go.
So what's on the docket for you guys coming up?
Like I said, a lot of us have remained mainly engaged. So we want to focus on the local and state level where people are paying attention and know the people that are running for office. There's some really good things going on that we're looking at in several parts of the state. Obviously, we have the midterms coming up, so we're going to be paying attention to that. We're going to be looking at our school boards. We're going to be looking at local ordinances, health mandates, anything that pops up in certain cities where somebody would say, I don't have any help. Like, this is overreach of government. I don't have any help. Well, that's what we're going to be here for, is to help Mississippi, control the accountability of what's going on. And, we'll have a public scorecard that'll just kind of show you where everybody lands. Those tools are already out there, but how many people pay attention to them? Well, we want to talk about it, not to put people on blast, but it's a job. You take a job, you work for the people, and no one's holding them accountable. And, we have to run them like they're businesses, and we have to run it like there's some sort of checks and balances in place, because right now we're very limited on how much we get involved, and that's disappointing. But there's hope.
It just seems like politicians are only worried about 90 days before the campaign, and then they want their walkers, and they want their telephone bankers, and they want the people who can reach out and write letters to the editor. Well, I don't even know. Letters to the editor were a big deal in Illinois. I haven't really seen it that much of a big deal here in Mississippi, but I'm sure it is important. But, it's one of those things where if you realize you want to start running for office, if that's something that's truly on your list, I'm just telling you this, when I realized I was going to run for county supervisor, I knew 2 years in advance. And I actually worked for another campaign where I got to work in my district because he was a state rep, and my supervisor district kind of overlapped his. So he just let me work all of his precincts that were in my district. And I got to meet these people 5-6 times over. And it turned out to be a really great deal. I knocked on this one door, and I was like, you're here to talk about David. I'm like, no, I'm actually here to talk about me. And she goes, I've been waiting for this. Hold on a minute. She goes back and she's writing me a check, and I'm telling her why I'm running. Dude, that was a $5,000 check on the doorstep. I mean, tell me that's not divinity. And, you start building up these local reputations, and the supervisor district was a pretty big way to go. But I was a precinct committeeman, delegate, and was really active doing other people's stuff, getting to know the lay of the land. And you don't have to eat the burrito in all one bite. You can do in small little slices,
Well, the people are out there and the votes are out there. It's just the organization and the way you organize. And look, man, we just saw the machines can be cheated.
Yep.
We just learned that. I had Professor David Clements on the podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Several months ago, and we talked about this. And I mean, in my mind, I'm like, so they can pretty much be. And he's like, yeah, but we were told 100%. And then Trump just came out and said, hey, now we know that, they can be.
What I don't get is we've got all these Republican Secretary of States. We've got all these Republican election commissioners. Why can't we just say, you know what, let's prove this once and for all. We've got people out there saying, look, I can stick in this thumb drive into any machine out there and I can hack it. We get the sheriff in there, ominous dominus. We get the attorney Lynn Finch out there saying, you're completely absolved. If you can really do this, show us. And just live stream it on X and Rumble. Don't put it on YouTube or Facebook, because they'll censor the heck out of that, and prove to people once and for all. And then if they can do it for one party, they can certainly do it for the other party. And then you see what happens in LA, in California. It's just ridiculous.
More than likely a bidding game of who can pay the most to, get the winning thumb drive, I guess you could say. And that's a little disheartening, and that's a little
Yeah.
discouraging. And it's like, well, why would I get involved in something like that? Well, like I said, let's just use an example for supervisor.
Mhm.
Well, in these elections, we have to get back to a system that's probably hand counting. I mean, I hate to say that,
Oh, I don't.
but I mean,
I think hand counting's great.
I don't know another way except for you from there, me from here, and them from there, and all three of us sit down with the counter and we just sit here and watch
We
however many freaking votes it is. And it's not going to take forever, but we have, and let's just say a camera, and let's just say it's
we got to take a break.
very
But
simple.
we got to take a break. But in the country of Chile, 29 million votes counted by the end of the election day. If a third world country like Chile can do it, why can't the United States? He's Chris Tapia. I'm Andrew Gosser. We're going to take our last break of the hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody who's tuning in on the chat. I just wanted to say thank you for all the comments and everything. Chris was awesome. He's going to come back again, I'm sure. And hopefully, this motivates you to talk to your pastors and your friend groups about getting active here for 2027 and beyond. All right, we're going to finish up this break and we're going to come right back. Only in America and only in Mississippi will you find Andrew Gossar on the 103.9 WYAB, along with my buddy Chris Tapia. Chris, where does the time fly, dude? We've been talking for a whole hour.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you. And I didn't really notice till now your shirt and the flag behind you. Man, you're giving off the vibes.
Dude, I bleed red, white, and blue. Well, we've got about 2.5 minutes left. What do you want to close up with, my friend?
Yeah, man, thanks. We were talking on the break a little bit about our event Thursday. So the Conservative Coalition, the Central Chapter is going to be at Riverside Church over in Flowood, Mississippi. And we'll have Commissioner Andy Gibson there. He's going to be talking data centers. It's a big, hot topic right now. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that we give him a platform in front of people. These are the town halls. These are the types of things that, in 10 years and 5 years and 3 years, next year, we can't say, well, I just don't know. I wasn't, I'm not happy, or this is what I would ask. This is this is the point, if we would just put these things down.
Yep. I hear you.
If we would just put those things down and focus on what matters in our communities and our families and being involved locally, it would matter. So that's one of the chapters. We have several chapters across the state. We're planning on expanding those over the next 2 to 6 months and really growing the podcast and our response system for areas and policies around the state that need attention. But they can go to Conservative MS to donate. To our PAC. There's also mergemississippi.org, which is associated with Conservative MS. And man, we appreciate you. And like I said, your platform and everything you do allow us to come here. Hopefully we can make this a regular thing and tell you, hey, remember that conversation. This is about accountability. I'm not here to say we want to do this, we want to do that. Hold me accountable. Let's try to get some stuff done. We're not going to fix the world. We're not here to be the Savings Nation organization. We're here to worry about what is going on locally. Mm-hmm. And, at some point that's going to touch the national and the federal level, whenever that is, that's fine. But we can affect what we can closely, quickly. And that's what matters. Our families, our communities.
Dude, I totally hear that. And I appreciate that so much, because we don't need to be Conservative Coalition, Mississippi World Police. We just need to be in our own backyard. And I'm telling you, all of you in Jackson who are wanting to find out more information on data centers, this Thursday night, I will make sure that I tweet that out and put it or post it on X. And I can't put it on Facebook, but maybe you can, or Instagram. Where can we find you again online?
So conservativems.com. That's you can donate. There's a link to the flyer there. We're on Facebook. You can go to mergemississippi.org to learn about that organization and the outreach that it's providing. Everything is, like I said, getting revamped, and we're just re-energizing all this. So,
well, brother, I sure do appreciate that. Dude, I don't mean to cut you off, but we got about 5 seconds left. Take care, everybody. Be blessed. Yes and amen, ladies and gentlemen. Amen.